Hello, my name is Dennis Galvin, and I'm here with a public affairs program associated with Westford Cat News. I think you're going to find this program very interesting because it deals with issues that are very common and occurring quite frequently in Massachusetts small towns. In recent years, a lot of our municipalities have found themselves financially tight. This is because costs have gone up and also because state local aid has been diminishing. And as a result of that, many communities have tried very, very desperately to sort of recoup the losses of those funds, and they've done them in some very innovative ways. Some of the ways have been very controversial, and such is the case with the town of Littleton. The town of Littleton Recreation Department has embarked on several policies that tightly regulate the use of recreational fields. They require licensing, they require fees, and as a result of that, some programs have been precluded. We have with us today two gentlemen that are concerned about that and want to talk to you about that. And I'm going to introduce them to you. To my right is Marcus Lewis from the town of, which town is it?
I currently live in Lancaster.
Lancaster. And to my left is Jeff Armanto from the town of Littleton. Now, these two gentlemen are going to give you a little bit of a background on themselves, and then we're going to lead you into this very interesting and not ununique issue in Massachusetts. So, Marcus, I'm going to start with you. Can you give us a little bit of a background about who you are and what your orientation is to this?
Sure. I grew up in the little town of Lunenburg. Played tennis for the high school team. I then played for UC Santa Barbara in college, and then actually was fortunate enough to play on the circuit in Europe and a little bit of Africa before finally coming home tired and broke from my travel expenses. But at that point, I needed to work on having a career, and where my trajectory really kind of intersected with Littleton was when I taught my first independent tennis lessons on the two town courts in Littleton over 20 years ago. That was the first time that I had kind of gone out on my own a little bit, and really was a launch pad for what I have now, which are a couple of tennis clubs in Acton. I have a large summer camp in the town of Westford, some satellite programs. But yeah, that was the beginning.
So you saw an opportunity with tennis and you took it.
I loved hitting a ball.
Good for you. Yeah. Good for you. How about you, Jeff? How about your background?
So, longtime resident of the area, grew up in Westford.
Welcome home.
Yeah, thanks. And I've lived in Littleton since 2004 with my wife, Liz. Since moving to the town in 2004, we've done a lot of things with the town. My wife's on numerous PTA boards, school councils. She's done a lot of volunteering in the town with the kids. We have 3 children in the public school system. I've owned multiple businesses in town, including office buildings. Mm-hmm. We have a house, obviously, in town. And I've been volunteering time with the tennis program in the town of Littleton with Marcus, the boys and girls high school teams. And my tennis got started in high school, Westford Academy. I played for 4 years. I taught for a number of years at the local Westford Tennis Center, and I played through college.
So I take it both of you are devotees of the game of tennis.
Love the game of tennis.
And so let us go into the issue at hand, if you could. So, in a very tight way, can you explain to us why you're here and what the issue is that you're facing with the town of Littleton?
Sure. The reason that I'm here is that in the past years ago, I had built a fair, a summer camp fair, with the then recreation director at the time, and it was a very successful fair. And secondly, I also had taken over the coaching of the tennis program in Littleton. It was brought to my attention that Littleton was not going to have a tennis team. They had kids who wanted to play but not a coach. And not that I really had the time to take on another project, but I'm an ambassador of tennis, and that would have been a bit of a travesty. So took it over. Our first year we went 0-12. By the 5th year we went 12 or 14-0. First time we won the league in 40 years. But I had a parent come to me and say, gosh, my daughter would be very interested in playing tennis, but it's expensive. It's a very expensive sport, and I don't want to really pay that money and know that she may not want to do it. I thought to myself, how much would it cost for me to really do that, right? I volunteer my time. I've got some resources, sure. So we put together this cool thing called Try Tennis. It's a free class, and anybody could participate. Any child in Littleton, any child, so long as they had not had a tennis lesson before. I really wanted to reach out to people who had not had exposure to this. I mean, my job is to rip down barriers, right? So we did it. We ran it. It was extremely successful. We had over 30 kids come. Parents got to sit and watch. It was phenomenal. But then, to try to make a long story short, there was a memorandum of understanding that was drafted between the town, between the school department, and between Park and Rec. And that MOU was designed to really kind of demarcate the responsibilities. Who handles the town fields, who handles rentals. But in there, Park and Rec had a clause, and the clause was a non-compete clause that basically kind of gave them the unilateral ability to deny access to resources if they felt something competed with them. So first, they went after the camp fair. And the ironic thing is that I had built this with a camp director, but a new recreation director had come in, who I invited, said, hey, look, your predecessor had built this with me. Let's have you jump in, and didn't hear anything. And that's kind of the theme that you're going to see. We never get a response on anything. I reached out a second time, nope. But instead, what I got when I went to rent the cafeteria was, sorry, Marcus, we can't allow you to do that. Recreation says or feels it competes with them. And then after that, then my Try Tennis program. So a few years later, I tried to run it again and was told, nope, no support on this either. And that's where things got very escalated.
Okay. Joe, how about you? I mean, Jeff. I'm sorry. Can you add to any of this? What brought you to this whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can throw in some of the color from my perspective. First of all, I want to just say, just to put some timeline around this, and Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, but that memo of understanding, the MOU that he referred to, was 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, so we're not talking about 6 months ago here. We're talking about 7 years ago. So, what brought me into it is, again, my history was playing tennis, 3 children, never really forced them into sports, but Marcus was holding a tennis program, one of these free programs like you discussed. I think it was in Acton, actually, and we got wind of it, and some of my kids decided they wanted to go try this. And I couldn't tell you what year that was. I can ballpark it, 2009, 2010. So we went there, and the kids had fun, and I met Marcus, and I started to ask him about, hey, is there a high school team? I mean, I'd love to be part of something again, because I really hadn't been involved in tennis for a number of years. So he said yes, he was getting the high school program going again, and I decided to become part of that and volunteer my time, and I had no kids in the program. So I just started to get involved with Marcus. My first child did enter the program 2 years ago, and this year was her second year playing tennis, so now I actually have a child in the program. Okay. But again, started to just get involved with Marcus and got to know him as a person, and then we came to the point where we started to get wind of some of the struggles he was having within the town, and that's kind of the point at where I started to hear about this.
Now you gentlemen are now found yourselves heavily involved in citizen participation and activities here. You're taking an initiative, which you have all the right to do in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and elsewhere. So, specifically, what is it that you're trying to accomplish with regard to the town of Littleton? What do you want to try to achieve?
So, once those things happen, the camp fair and the free tennis lessons, I realized others were coming to me saying that, look, we've had problems. There was an issue with an Easter egg hunt and them not being allowed. I mean, told point blank that, no, we're not going to let you rent the middle school space because it might compete with our free Easter egg hunt. A free Easter egg hunt? Yeah, I know, right.
Okay.
But beyond that, the idea is to make it so that, you can't just simply say, because you say that we don't want this or we feel it shouldn't compete with us, that we're not going to run that program. I mean, what is the real purpose of a non-compete? I mean, who benefits from that, right? And that's the question, the dialogue I've been trying to have. So great, a non-compete in this form benefits the agency, sure, but how does it benefit? It does that by basically making it so that, you guys aren't going to have a choice. you won't have a choice. We don't want you to have a choice, right? We want to make it so you have to come to us.
Monopoly?
Okay? Yeah, exactly right. And you know what? I focus a lot on the free programs because that to me is the most egregious piece. But yeah, you know what? Even if it's a pay program, I mean, if you don't have a choice, well, guess what? You know what? You can pay more, which is there are examples of that. Okay. Again, a big one was you know, the library had a tough time because they offered a girls in coding program. Okay, a free girls in coding program. And apparently Rec had one as well. But then Rec goes to the library and says, look, you know what, we don't want you to run this. You need to get rid of this program. And on top of that, you know what, we want you to sign this document that says that, you know, anything that you run needs to go through us. And you know what, that caused a lot of friction. And again, obviously I caught wind of it, had spoken to a number of people about it. And it really is just the wrong approach. You know what, work together. You know what, again, let's have a conversation, and that's where I've had the most difficult time. I've reached out to, now it's 2 recreation directors. I've reached out to a recreation commission, which we did have a conversation, which was, it was overall positive. We actually got a middle school team going, and that happened through a dialogue, though. It happened through a sit down of, hey, look, let's just talk and work this out. And they got it, okay? But then when it came to the free lessons, you know what, it's kind of like this a bit. So then it gets escalated. But again, in answer to your question, what's the goal? The goal is to make it so that nobody can use that as a reason to shut down opportunities for not just kids, but even adults, if that's the case.
Good.
Yeah.
How about you, Jeff? Is that how
So-
you see it too as well? Or was there, is there anything else that,
Yeah, and as a resident of the town, I have a slightly different, I don't know if it's a different perspective or another thing to
Absolutely,
add to that.
that's
So
what you
I think you asked the question of what's our goal with the town, and really our goal is to have a discussion. Okay. Neither one of us want to be here. Neither one of us want to cost the taxpayers money of the town of Littleton. I am a taxpayer of the town of Littleton. We don't want to be here. We just want to have a discussion and get this worked out so that these free programs and maybe even some charge programs that are benefiting the town would be able to be offered and not blocked.
Okay.
We tried repeatedly. I mean, you can go to the website littletontennis.com. There's a full documentation of this. You can start digging in and reading all the contacts from Marcus to the important people in the town. And most of the time it was no response, 2-3 times. And so as a resident, you know, I started getting involved in late 2018, so late last year. And what really brought me into the fold, because I pretty much pay my taxes and live in the town. But what brought me to the fold is I was shocked and appalled at how nobody would even talk to Marcus about this issue. And when I look, I see the town receiving legal letters. You know, it went up an escalator. And at points, there's legal letters of this topic being received by the town, and there's no response. And even in the minutes of the meetings of these boards, they don't even talk about it. It's not there. So it's completely ignored, and that bothered me as a resident. So obviously I would love free tennis, free whatever to be offered to the residents, but I'm also just really appalled at the process
where the
here and how it's
process is.
gone.
So in specific terms, do you see the memorandum as a focus of the conversation to revisit it, at least review it? Is that what it is?
I would love to have a conversation about the memorandum. You know, Jeff talked about the escalation of it. So, yeah, I mean, that really is the crux of the matter. And
Okay.
you know, more recently, you know, we have this bylaw petition because, again, the entities that are engaged in the MOU, they don't want to talk about it. And you know, and I get it, okay? Because who really wants to stand up and say, yeah, you know what? Hey, look, I'm for a non-compete that, again, makes it so that we don't have options, okay? It'll benefit an agency, but at the expense of maybe us having choice. I mean, who really wants to go up and say that, okay? What's the easier way to take, right? The easier way is that, you know what, let's not have the conversation. Let's focus on other things. You know, Marcus.
Maybe you go away.
Yeah, exactly right. I go away, which of course that's what happens with many people, and they've told me that too. That you know, they've had maybe issues or whatnot, and but I'm not that way. You know what? My mother would tell you that, you know, when I was a kid, if I felt wronged, then I felt the need to fix it, and that's why I'm so passionate about this.
Well, this is a society that offers you the opportunity to do it.
Absolutely.
So here's the question I have for you. Now that you've identified the focus, has an effort been made to engage the Recreation Department one-on-one in a discussion about this at all?
Well, believe me, there were multiple attempts in the past. Since the petition was launched, no, we haven't reached out directly to PRCE, but I've put out there many times that I am always open to a conversation. In fact, look, I don't feel anyone is a bad person or anything of that degree. I just feel like that, look, I work with a lot of recreation departments. I get the difficulties you've had. I personally think that rec is a part of a natural, or I should say, a healthy development of someone. I'm for actually subsidizing it, not restricting it and trying to make it so they're level funded. I think that's difficult. That's a whole different discussion. But where there's a problem is that if you're an agency whose mission is to provide recreation for others, then would you really create a barrier like that? And again, with free programs, a cost barrier. But even with pay programs, if you have someone who, let's say, does it better than you, then entertain it, right?
Yeah. So Jeff, because you were concerned about the reaction to your local municipal government, have you actually gone as far as to approach the Board of Selectmen at all with this problem at all?
So the Board of Selectmen was approached many times again in the past. You got to understand that there's a 7-year history here, and at some point you have to, once the issue has been ignored, you start to have to follow a process. Okay, and I think that process really probably started in late 17, early 18 of more direct, even from an attorney, demands, if you will, to have this discussion. And when those are ignored, then we are at the point of now having to file a petition, and which we did last year. We started to get signatures, and then we follow the process of getting that petition discussed in a town meeting. Okay. So, and again, if you go to that website, the documentation is unbelievable about the attempts. Unfortunately now, after we've done this, we've had these signatures put on the petition. We filed the petition in May of this year. Prior to that, we sent multiple emails giving 30, 60 days notice between these multiple emails saying, hey, we're about to file this. Can somebody give us some guidance? Not even a response, nothing. We filed the petition. We filed it for the special town meeting, because obviously that's the better venue for us to discuss this, rather than in a regular town meeting where there's numerous things being discussed. We had the ability to have our own platform, so to speak. So when we filed for the special town meeting. That's how the petition was filed. At that moment, now suddenly everyone wants to have a discussion.
All right, so speaking of that, yeah. I understand that a fairly significant meeting occurred somewhere on June 3rd.
Yeah,
is that correct? And I understand it was very passionate. And can you explain from your side of it what happened during that meeting? It sounds like a very interesting situation.
Sure. First, you really need to understand the context, okay? So bear in mind, Jeff says, this history of 7-year history. They were emailed before, again, a good month before the petition was filed. Nothing comes back, okay? Then suddenly, with about 5 days' notice, hey, we would like the petitioner to come to this meeting, give a presentation. Oh, and by the way, others who may be there to express their thoughts or opinions may or may not be allowed to do so, at least not until they finish with their presentation. So it was obvious that the idea there was to really kind of control the narrative, and if you watch that, gosh, it's kind of hostile. Mm-hmm. His wife did not show, which we're glad that she didn't, because. So
who chaired the meeting? I mean, did anybody chair it, or was it just a?
No, it was the Board of Selectmen there, so they had the chair there and so forth. But even before the meeting started, there were just some comments that were made, very kind of vitriolic. And I came because I just wanted to kind of observe, and I really had to just kind of sit there and listen to these things being said that, well, Marcus, and in fact, so a few things in that meeting. So the first thing that happened was, they had Park and Rec come up and really try to kind of pull apart the language of the bylaw. Now, really, if you're there to have a discussion, tell me your concerns, right? So one of the concerns was, well, we feel it's ageist, it puts youth ahead of others. Well, it was a nice thought. I'm sure some people would like that. If you don't want to have youth in front, that's fine. We don't have to do that. Well, we feel it creates this hierarchical kind of situation, and it puts nonprofits first. Okay, well, look, if you want to...
Was that the hierarchy of programming? Is that
Yeah,
right?
exactly right. I think their contention was, look, we have a formula of if there's 80%, I think, town residents, they get priority. I'm okay with that, because what you're talking about there is when programs need to be decided on, at a certain time frame, maybe one takes priority of the other. The thing that never got addressed, okay, and this is the whole thing. It's like, let's avoid the big pink elephant in the room, okay? Let's talk about the ability to shut down programs. And so they kind of went through various programs that I've cited. Hey, well, in this program that Mr. Lewis talks about, that was a miscommunication. In this program, we got someone who says that, it wasn't here, it was located over there. You know what? I was in the thick of it when all this was going on. And again, when they explained the library, it wasn't that. When they explained the library, it was that, hey, we don't run that program anymore. Instead of maybe saying, we made a mistake. We really kind of shouldn't have taken that path, and again, people would respect that. But in the meeting, they were not there to have a discussion. Yeah.
Was that your same take as well?
Absolutely. And going back to a couple of things that we've said, how we've wanted to have a discussion about this, and we've had to follow a process. This process, unfortunately, dictates that we have to take this discussion and try to legally frame it in 8 sentences, or whatever the length of this document now is. So now our discussion has to center around that legalized statement. The reality is, we still just want to have a discussion. We want to talk about the blocking of programs. You can rewrite that entire legal statement. We're not hung on that. We just want to have the discussion. So if everyone in this room at this next meeting we're going to have believes that nobody should be able to block services to be offered to residents, if you believe that, then let's figure out how to write it. But now we just had to put that on a piece of paper in order to follow the town mandated process.
Yeah, well, that's how it works. That's how you provoke the discussions. And so let me ask you this question. You do have a bylaw prepared, right? You have or you have a initiative petition that you put through, and you're looking for a town meeting. What will be the issue that needs to be discussed at that special town meeting?
Well, what really needs to be discussed, like Jeff said, is whether or not this should be allowed. Okay, I think that in other words,
whether they can deny
exactly,
programs.
Right, exactly, whether they have that authority to do so.
Okay.
But as Jeff illustrated, though, in that meeting, they kind of, I think, put out like the playbook a little bit, and it's going to be to again try to rip apart some language things, which happens in these meetings. It happens with other things in various towns and so forth. If you can kind of make it confusing, no one's going to want to vote for it. Okay, if you can kind of shoot it down, no one's going to vote for it. If you can focus on, hey, Marcus is not a resident, now we don't want. What? Look, talk about the merits of it. The merits of it. I mean, that's what we want to talk about. I mean, look, I'm not making money from this. Okay, I mean, look, I have a business and so forth. I mean, look, but I'm fighting tooth and nail because I don't like the fact that I could have been one of those kids. Okay, I could have been someone, all right, that could have had an opportunity and didn't get it. All right,
yeah.
And I do, and I feel bad that honestly I haven't been able to do this sooner, because you know what, I feel like I've lost about 6 years worth of introducing kids to things, and it fires me up, because that's the scoop. I mean, I don't have kids. I don't have my own kids, okay? My legacy is not going to be passed through my children, okay? I would like my legacy to be like, you know what, look, Marcus did some good things, okay? I've tried to do some good things, and yeah, I get it. I've built up a lot of credit and credibility in town. I'm spending it all now. Things like this make everybody look bad. It makes me look bad, the selectmen, the park and rec. I don't want that, all right? But you know what? I will fight tooth and nail to make it so that kids are not denied these opportunities.
How about you? What's your take on the bylaw? What do you think you're going to accomplish by it?
Again, it's a simple, I think the question very simply is, does the town of Littleton want to allow a committee or a board to block things that will be productive and beneficial to its residents. Okay, that is the simple question that people should answer. I hope we don't get bogged down into why did we get here. Why did this cost so much? Why is it written this way? I hope we can just talk about that issue, and that's what I'd like to see happen.
Well, I just want to I want to thank you both for sharing. I think you clarified it very well. I think we certainly have an understanding of what's going to go down in Littleton. And for those of you who are watching, this is an exercise in self-government, and it's not always pretty, but it is still better than having someone from some far-off place tell you what you're going to do. So these gentlemen have demonstrated some grit. They have a vision and they have some passion. And I'm sure that this is going to make for a very interesting discussion in the town of Littleton. So I want to wish you both well and luck.
Thank you.
And we'll see what happens. Okay? So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the program. And again, for a Westford Cat news presentation, thank you very much for watching. Take care.